Paul Healy, manager of the Rubicon Centre. Welcome to Irish Startup TV.
Thank you. Our role here in the Rubicon is to help people who have a business idea, or maybe not, to take them from idea right through to first orders, helping them raise the money, accessing new markets, we're on campus, this is a campus incubation centre, so accessing all the resources that CIT has to offer, which includes its research and specialist area, and then obviously the hinterland of the campus, which right across the city and region, and to access all the different stakeholders and people who can help startups here in Cork.
Fantastic, and you've been here from the early days as well.
Yeah, I'm here probably from from the very start, from when the builder we finished construction, and it started with the original footprint of the building here, and we worked from here. Originally, we actually thought that the idea would only be a small incubation centre with probably about 10 people.
Fantastic.
But very, very quickly we found actually it exceeded our expectations completely. Right. The Rubicon probably has about 60 companies based here at the moment, and then there are further probably another 50 companies which are based externally, on which we help. I suppose to date, if you like to call it an alumni, we have about 400 companies out there in the region, right across Cork, doing all sorts of things. Technology would be obviously our predominant sectors in the ICT sector, which reflects what Cork has to offer, and biotech, electronics, and food, and international traded services.
It's quite a range of startups, and yes, you must have seen the landscape shifting, that now I'd say that Cork is a great place to come and do a startup. Was that always the case?
Well, I suppose, I'm not from Cork, but I can say this, that Cork has always had a tradition of trade, right, and business. But I suppose in the last few years, when we started, I suppose, and we'll be 10 years in business in January, we would have predominantly dealt with people who would have been out in industry and multinationals or in other businesses, and would be looking to do their own startup or doing it for themselves, or maybe because a large company would have decided to close their operations and they would have been forced entrepreneurs. Now what we see two different types of entrepreneurs have emerged, particularly in the last 3 years. Number one, we're seeing a younger entrepreneur. A lot of the graduates and indeed undergraduates of CIT have now become entrepreneurs, and for example, an example of that now would be we have examples of that across the board. So from Tracy from Be Your Beauty, which is a skincare product which comes from our Pink program, was an undergraduate. We have Dog Day Media, Alex Musgrave and his team, all undergraduates who started a business.
That's another great, talking about Cork institutions, the Musgrave family as well.
Yeah, well obviously we see when we're dealing with clients, you know, typically when I meet somebody for the first time, I sit down, it's normally over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and normally you get talking, and your people will tell you their story and they'll tell you their career or what they've done. And I suppose the things that I watch out for is I look at the person and their ability, would they be able to pull off a startup? And things that I'm looking for, obviously there's a history of entrepreneurship in their family. We obviously, because Cork is both rural and city, sometimes you'll people who come from rural backgrounds, from farming backgrounds, and farmers are probably entrepreneurial in the very ventures that they do today. We look at, you know, what they did, like were they involved in entrepreneurship at second level, and you begin to get these traits as well, you know, so they come through. Some people would have been involved. They say, well, I work for a large multinational, and I would say to them, well, look, did you start, were you there? And they say, oh, I was there in the very beginning when there was only a couple of us. I said, okay, you didn't own the business, but you were involved in a startup. And it goes from there.
There's a great local example of Margaret Burgraff, Nia Donovan, whom we met recently, a girl from West Cork.
Yes.
And she came from a potato farm, and
yes,
she went and she studied computer science and economics, and she ended up working for Apple.
Yeah.
That's an incredible success story. She talks about the importance as well of mentoring. How important do you feel is mentoring?
I couldn't say everybody should have a mentor, regardless of whether they're an entrepreneur or not. Okay, to give you an example of something I've done recently, the government, through their action plan for jobs, established an Oireachtas committee to work on the whole area of mentoring, and to re-look at it, so as to bring on, I suppose, a lot of the goodwill and volunteer mentoring that is out there. So we've involved all our companies here have access to mentors, and we actively encourage it. And we would see that, and in fact CIT recently will be involved in a project to look at mentoring as itself going forward. You know, so
fantastic.
So mentoring is very, very important, and there's a lot of goodwill towards mentoring.
You've alluded to the power of a cup of coffee. If anybody is watching the video and they say, God, I'd love to get involved in a startup, what should they do? Can they contact you?
I think firstly what they can, they can contact us on our website, rubiconcentre.ie. They can lift the phone, send a simple email, or just walk in the door.
Fantastic.
This is it. And all we ask is, normally people come in and say, I have an idea, I want to talk to somebody. And we always take time out. We have a full team of people here, experts who are well used to dealing with people. We find that that system works best. It's very important that people, I suppose when we started the Rubicon Centre, I would have met, in a previous life, a lot of people would be walking around with very good ideas and would do nothing about them. Then something happens and they normally say, I only wish. So I would say to people, we're not in the I only wish. We provide that. If the idea isn't to run it, we'll tell you. If it is, we'll help to run away. Our experience is people find that that isn't the idea. They'll go away and they'll try something else. We have a number of programs we run here with New Frontiers, which is a flagship opportunity, which provides a whole pathway to develop. We have our Female Entrepreneurship Excel, which allows females who are in the STEM sector, who don't necessarily jumped yet and working by day and want to examine a project part-time, so they don't have to give up their jobs. We have our PINK program, and then we have all the work we do on a one-to-one basis.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like it's well worth getting in contact with Rubicon, even if you're only at the early I have an idea stage.
Correct. Yes, the earlier you contact us, the better. We also say we meet a lot of people now, and something I'm particularly keen on myself is a lot of people are working existing business in existing sectors. They may be taken over from a family member or something like that, and they want to look at new ideas. And I say, well, people say, are they startups? And I say, well, if they're branching off in a new development, they're startups as well. So we encourage those people to contact us. And also, I mean, there's a range of supports right across CIT in terms of product development as well.
There's a great ecosystem.
So there's an ecosystem, so you can have your product development work, your early stage done here, and you can have your commercial work done here. And we have then obviously the supports of the Leos and Enterprise Ireland, Udrus Gelticta, and the leader partnership companies across the region. So there is something for everybody. So it's a question of, you have an idea, it's a question of you taking that first step, and then we'll hold your hand after that.
Paul Healy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, it's great.